It's my pleasure to introduce our two keynote speakers. The faculty discussed this over some time about who we would like to have visit with you this morning during our morning session. And we selected two individuals that both are very knowledgeable of the Florida beef cattle industry and this center in particular. The first person I'd like to introduce is Mr. Erik Jacobson. Erik is the general manager of Deseret Citrus and Cattle, is also responsible for their cattle operations, I believe, throughout Canada and into Latin America. He has a broad understanding of beef cattle production throughout the world and also with a very special ranch here in Florida. All of our faculty have research and extension activities on their ranch. And so our students and faculty are very familiar with their operation as Erik is with us. So it's my pleasure to introduce Erik and thank him. I know that he made some late travels last night to be with us today, and all the faculty appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Well, John, I appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk a little bit about the owner research station. That has had a big impact on Deseret ranches specifically and the cattle industry in Florida more generally. John asked that I comment on the impact the center has had on the industry and Deseret ranches over its history. As I reflect back, I always marvel at the vision of those who have gone before us. In this case, the vision of members of the Florida legislature, industry, and the university who in 1941 established this center. Just kind of starting out and going way back. So going back, I'm kind of at that phase in life where I see too well to use glasses, but I don't see well enough not to use them. So if you see me take them on and off, some of you can probably relate to that. Anyway, going way back, most of us know that cattle were introduced in Florida back in 1521 by the Spanish explorers. And I've heard a lot of people say that Florida was the first place that cattle were introduced in the United States. I went back and looked at some of the numbers in time, and there's not a lot of good data going back to 1941, but it looks like Florida beef cow numbers peaked at about 1.4 million in 1975, and then slowly trended down after that, and have in the last 3 or 4 years stabilized at about 900,000 head of beef cows in the state of Florida, while at the same time productivity has increased, or cattle productivity has increased because of places like Ona. Today, Florida is home to 5 of the top 10 cow-calf producers in the United States. It's ranked 10th in the nation in the number of beef cows. Has 3.2 million acres of pasture land and 1.3 million acres of grazed woodland, providing most of the natural landscape that still exists in the state today. It provides healthy green spaces to help filter and recharge underground water supplies, and it generates a total economic impact of about $1 billion for the state of Florida. So the industry has been very significant over the years and continues to be so. Deseret Ranches was formed back in 1950, and since then, the center here at Ona has been an important part of our efforts to try to stay current and apply the latest science to our ranching operations. So, to go back a little bit before my time, I contacted my predecessor, Paul Janot, who most of you probably know of or know, to ask what he thought were some of the key contributions made by the center during his tenure as general manager of the ranch. And I asked him if I could kind of quote him on a few things. So these aren't exact quotes, but these are some of the points. And these kind of came randomly to me over the last couple of days, so I'll give them to you randomly. So the first thing he said is that a vast majority of cattle in Florida are in the south and central part of the state. So Ona's location matches where the cattle are, so it has been an important to the industry for decades. And I think that's important. Jack and I were talking about the Ona Center and what an impact it's had on Florida, and the bulk of the cattle in the state are in Central and South Florida, and so it's important to have a center where those cattle are so that they can do research here that's relevant. Another comment he made was that Kalmbacher and Miss Levy added tremendously to our knowledge of forage in South Florida. I remember coming down just really early in my career with Paul and meeting with all the folks in Ona, and we would come down here regularly to try to stay current on what the latest thoughts were, and once in a while Paul would take a little grab of something that they were working on and bring it back with us, and we'd try to propagate it and expand it to make sure we were a little bit ahead of everyone else on trying some of the new grasses, right? And so the center's had a big impact on that. Another comment he made is a lot of what we know today about breeding Boston-Icus cattle came from work done by Peacock at Ona. That goes back a little bit before my time, but that was something that he felt pretty strongly about. And then he said the center director, Finley Pate, worked closely with industry to answer the needs of the cattle industry, a lot like what's happening today. And so Ona, I think, has had a long tradition of working really closely with the industry and helping to meet our needs. So I'd add a couple other comments just from my experience of things that I think have been significant to Deseret and the industry that have come out of Ona. And one is introduction of limpo-grass, and I realize that was kind of a collaboration within the industry, or within the university system, but introduction of limpo-grass and then subsequent improved cultivars have been very significant to the industry and to Deseret. For us, we're at a point now where we have somewhere around 35,000 acres of limpo-grass on our ranch at Deseret Ranches, and it's become an extremely important part of our business. Another one is work done to develop and refine fertilization recommendations for forages. Chris talked about how we need to become more efficient in our forage utilization, and obviously one of our biggest costs in Florida is fertilization, and so we've got to become more refined. The analogy that I've heard used is if you're driving an Indy 500 car around the Indianapolis track at 30 miles an hour, you can wave and look around and not really paying attention. But if you ramp up to about 200 miles an hour, you better be focused or you're going to crash. And as costs go up, as input costs go up, we can't be quite as lackadaisical about what we do. We've got to become more refined and more focused, and efforts here at Ona can help us do that to manage our costs. Another one is research done on winter supplementation and just supplemental mineral use. And then finally, continuous research on weed control and testing of new herbicides that we all rely on. I know we don't do anything in our herbicide program unless we check with Ona to find out what the most efficient, at least the latest thinking on mixes and rates to make sure that we're getting the biggest bang for our buck. So it's had a big impact on us over the years in that regard. Today, scientists at Ona continue production-related research to help make the cattle industry more efficient, but they also have adapted to address the new issues of the day, including air and water quality, utilization of biosolids, and the management of wildlife on working ranches like Raul talked about. The other comment I wanted to make is that John Arthington and staff have also carried on the tradition of working closely with industry to address our needs through collaboration with the Florida Cattlemen's Association on our research priorities and through communicating with other stakeholders. I know during my tenure as president of the Cattlemen's Association, and while I've served on the executive committee, I know the folks here at Ona have bent over backwards to try to understand what the research priorities were or are of the industry, and then to try to address those as best they could. So we're excited to see the revitalization of this center. I would say about 10 years ago, it was a little bit depressing. Not that things were bad here, it's just staff was being reduced, facilities were deteriorating, and efforts of the university, efforts of the Florida Cattlemen's Association, the industry in general, have really turned a corner on that, and the place is really revitalized. You see lots of new facilities that Jim's going to talk a little bit about in a minute. A lot of new staff here, and it's exciting to see that revitalization happen because it's such a critical center. I just close by saying that I just want to express my gratitude personally and on behalf of Deseret Ranches for the efforts of the past scientists here at ONA and the scientists that are here now. We're excited about the staff that's here and what they're able to accomplish. And then also just say that we're excited to be in production agriculture and in the cattle business. Despite the challenges from coyotes to markets, we're bullish about the long-term outlook for agriculture. I think it was Raul talked a little bit about how many people are going to have to be fed in the world, and we're at 7 billion now. I've heard the number 9 billion by the time we hit 2050 or 60 or something like that, and somebody's going to have to feed them. And so we think that ag business is going to be a good business. We think the cattle business or the protein business will be good. We're excited to be in it. We keep investing in it, trying to expand, and so we're excited to continue to work with ONA, and we're grateful for all that they've done. And so with that said, I'll turn the time over to John. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Every year, the faculty at the Range Cattle Research and Education Center, we auction off at the FCA annual convention what we call a day with ONA faculty. And it's a way for us to give back to the Florida Cattlemen's Foundation that's done so much for us. And so Deseret Ranch has been a routine purchaser of that, donating to the foundation. And it's also a fun day for all of us because even though we work here, we've got all kinds of things going on. It's one day a year that all of us are together delivering educational materials to our friends in the state. The next person I want to introduce is Jim Strickland. Like Eric, Jim is a former president of the Florida Cattlemen's Association, and Jim is a member of our advisory council here at ONA. He's owner of Strickland Ranches, close to us, a neighbor here. He's involved in a lot of the programs that we have going on here at the center. And the faculty asked that, or all decided that we'd like to have Jim reflect a little bit on the center over its 75 years. Thank you.
So my first remembrance of ONA, because I am, I'm getting a little age on me, but my first remembrance is ONA Range Mineral. I mean, that was the very first thing I remembered, and I kept thinking, if you can make a mineral, you must be a really great place. It's some place I really want to see one day. You'd go to the livestock market whenever I was a little kid, and we'd go to Washula whenever they had a market, and you go through ONA, and I kept thinking, one day I want to go see this place. So here we are today. It is a place. It's a really special place, but I think that what I'm trying to say today is, if you will, here's what the point I'm trying to make. Turn around and look right over here at this whole group of people that you see with all of these papers that, I'll be honest with you, I don't truly understand a lot of the verbiage that's a heading on those papers. But the people that do the work, whether you're the fence crew here at ONA, we're the ones that work the cattle, you're the ones that bale the hay, you're the ones that answer the phone, you're the grad students that we have so many. I think that's what makes this place special. We all own, we all work, we all live on dirt. This is a piece of dirt. But what makes this place special is really the people. And I put the producers, if you will, last in there. That the producers are the ones that really depend on these people. Every morning that we wake up, if you're on our ranch, the benefits that you have on that ranch came in a large part from University of Florida, but particularly at ONA. And the people that went before John Arthington and the people that went before Raoul Boughton, they have given a lot of their life, their love, and their passion to making us a success. So today I'm really going to talk about the people of ONA and everybody that works with ONA. There were several people that really had a big part in what I thought of ONA. One of them was Finley Pate, of course. Another one was Martin Adjie, Dr. Martin Adjie, and he worked on the mole cricket issue. We thought in the Florida Cattlemen's Association that mole crickets were so important, we actually formed a committee on mole crickets, and I think we still have it. And Martin Adjie was probably one of the kindest, gentlest human beings that I knew. And when Martin passed, it was a sad day. But that was the kind of people that I really looked back and I thought about his mole cricket research that he had actually done on our ranch. So we went from that group. Now we have, I'll call them the global group. I was here whenever Maria Silveira and Joel Vendramini were up for their slots. And I really wanted them because I had in my past the ability to travel internationally. And in my gut, I said, if we are going to be somewhere 10, 20, 40, 50 years from now, that we really need to have a global perspective. We need to have that, if you will, worldwide reach to what we do. Whether we reach out for genetics in Australia or France or new forages down in the Amazon, we need to have that global perspective. And I was really, I kind of hold that dear to me that both of them came, and now we have twins. And I'm really proud to see these girls and see them here as a family, because we really are one big family, the producers and the people of Ona. So we fought pretty hard, and now we came up with another foreigner. So we have Raoul Boughton, you know. So if you listen to Raoul, you know, he brings this whole great other perspective and passion for what he does. I mean, I have really enjoyed working with Raoul because he has passion, and he's filling those shoes of those people that went before us. You know, the Martin Aggies or the Finley Pates or the Dr. Peacocks, or, you know, just keep right on going. But these people will also be icons one day. They will be icons in this industry. Now we fought for an economist. For years, by the way, we fought for an economist here. We needed him. Where's Chris? He's right over here. Oh, thanks, Chris. You know, what an uplifting thing. I hate following you today, by the way. But that's what we need. We really need to keep ramping up, keep moving forward, and I'm really proud to have an economist here at Florida, and I can tell you the cattle industry really worked hard to get you here. So thank you, Dr. Payne and John Arthington, for seeing what we do. Sellers, you know, Brent has been paramount in fixing some of the problems that we have. He's like second to none when it comes to what he does. So we're really blessed. And I can tell you, looking at all of the papers back there, this is what cowboys need. This is what ranchers need. We can't understand all of that back there, but it's going to make a difference. My little place here was on the first advisory board for John, but also I was foundation chairman. And as foundation chairman, I got to really realize how passionate John Arthington and his staff were about working with the cattle industry. And we had the Finley Pate endowment, if you will, from Don Plagg. And then a lot of people in this room, a lot of our producers put a lot of money into that endowment to finance some of these buildings here, to pay for some of these buildings here. The ranchers really stepped up. I could just start naming them, but I would miss somebody. So I won't name any, but there's a lot in this room. There's a lot of children of folks in this room that have put a lot of money into this because they believed in what these people do for us. Not only that, but I really appreciated John Arthington whenever he came to me whenever I was the foundation chair, which, by the way, is the philanthropic arm, if you will, of the Florida Cattlemen's Association. You can see our logo around here on the buildings. It's kind of that double-sided Florida. But John called and he said, I need some money. Well, you know, at that point, everybody needed money. You know, we had just finished the grad student housing up at Mariana. We were doing this, and John said, but I want to borrow some money. He wanted to borrow money while he was here. He was businessman enough to know if he kept the crew that was working on these other buildings here, he could maximize the money, pay for this along with the help of Mosaic. So we loaned John right at $90,000. And by the way, that's your money, because the Florida Cattlemen's Foundation is made up of funding that's given to us by Florida cattle ranchers across the state. So it was your money that helped pay, don't forget this, that helped pay for this building. And John paid us back. I mean, what an innovative way for somebody to come to us. And I was just tickled to death. Absolutely very proud of him. The accomplishments here. Let me start out by saying that in my world, I don't know a whole lot about peer-reviewed documents and how things are vetted, but I understand the importance of them because I've been around a little bit. But so many of the papers and the research and the studies that have been done here by the grad students and the professors that are peer-reviewed are so vitally important, much more so than you can do research all over the world, but unless your peers look at it, review it, and vet it, and dissect it, it means not a whole lot. But so much of the work here is important. It's very important, and the people that do it are very important. So we started out with the mineral, and Erik actually mentioned the mineral. John and his group are still working on mineral in South America and around the world. But the work on genetics, the work on mole crickets, now we're moving on into new forages. But we're constantly moving on. And I see this center being of paramount importance in the future to our land. And I've been taught a few things as I've started down this road of conservation easements, of which Dr. Raoul Boughton has mentioned, whether it's Florida Forever or whether it's the rural lands. Thank you, Raoul, for that plug. But Carrie Lightsey, whenever we bought through a partnership, one ranch came to me and looked me in the eye and said, "You are going to save it." And that said it all. You are going to save it. Well, to save our ranch lands, I think we're into a part of time of research that we really need to do a lot of research on the ramifications of what we do on the land and how important it is for a working cattle ranch to operate on a piece of dirt, whether it's lease land, owned land, partnership land. We need to be able to document those things, because whenever you go for conservation easements, whenever you go to people that understand every one of those papers that are back there, it's over my pay grade. But I know that we need all those studies to verify what, if you will, the Carrie Lightseys, which have sold so many conservation easements to keep that land in agricultural production, and he encourages others to do. I think that's where we see us going. That the work that Maria Silveira is doing on phosphorus, what I see us in the future doing is a lot of, if you will, geological work, hydrological work, reclamation work, and the effects of animals on this environment we live on. That we have a lot of knowledge. We have worked a lot on how to make money, genetics, forages, minerals. Now I see us in the future going forward that we have to be able to prove, as Raoul talked about, the increase of people in this world. Guess what? Florida is at the tip of the spear of that increase. And as every year that goes by, every election that goes by, as they get further away from agrarian society and understand what we did, or their grandfather was a farmer, we are going to have to depend on the work that's done here by the professors, by these grad students. It's going to be very, very, very important. I've had a really great time traveling with Joe Vendramini, and some of you may have heard this story, but Joe and I traveled to the Amazon because we do ship cattle internationally around the world, and one of our clients was in the Amazon, and I took Joe. Joe and I ran out of water way down in the Amazon. We were with a group of Rastafarians, and they didn't quite understand where we were, but we were a long way from home, and we had to take our own gas, our own water, our own food, and we ran out of water. And there was a man that had come, and I do believe from England, Mr. Lopes, and he had pretty much went native down there in the Amazon. There was no power. He had no power. We were 100 miles from anybody, and we pulled into his place, and he had Land Rovers that had broken down, Caterpillar tractors that had broken down. You could see that the whole ranch was in a state of abandonment. But whenever we got there, there was Mr. Lopes. He had no shoes, pair of shorts, no shirt. But he loved the Amazon, and he loved his cattle. It was a little tight there for a while because he wasn't accustomed to people coming to visiting 100 miles from anywhere down there in the Amazon, and there were still indigenous tribes very close to him, which Joe and I got to visit an indigenous tribe one morning, and they were yelling to us out of the trees, if I remember right. When we pulled in there, what saved the day was really Vendramini, because when he learned that he was a professor at University of Florida, it was like the light bulb came on. Now keep in mind, this is a ranch that is in total disrepair, but in the middle of his homestead, he had a windmill. And underneath that windmill, he had to grab Vendramini and I and go show us one of the most important things that he had tried to save while he had Land Rovers and Caterpillars and loaders and tractors that were totally abandoned. He had kept a variety of University of Florida forage still watered, and it was about the size of this tent, if I remember right. And it was right there by his windmill. That saved the day. That in the middle of the Amazon, what had happened here was so important that that man had let his assets go, but he kept and was proud of a variety of grass that was developed here. Very important. I have had a lot of great experiences with grad students. I've been blessed that we have a place here, near here, of which we have done research on panthers, coyotes, hogs, burrowing owls, and we're entering into a couple new research projects with ONA now. And I really, truly enjoy it. Gives me energy to see these young people out there working, and especially the different cultures, whether you're from Japan, whether you're from China, Brazil, Costa Rica. It's really a pleasure to see that whole global perspective that's coming on. So I'll end with this, and this actually came from a quote from the son of the first employee that set foot on this place. First employee was Gilbert Tucker. I considered him one of the very, very fine men, and also, if you will, one of my mentors. But a quote by his son Bert Tucker here one day was that if you doubt ever what happens to the accomplishments of ONA, look out your window of the ranch. Look at the genetics, look at the forage, look at the mineral, look at the timing, look at all those things. That's the accomplishments of ONA is right outside. So going back to what I initially started was, this is a place, this is a good piece of dirt, but it's really the people that make this a success, and I'm proud to be affiliated with this group. Thank you, John.